They had to rush a lot of it, but somehow, I think just not by dumb luck, but this 30-year-old guy with this great cast pulled off a really good film that Paramount didn't like. But
And his best movie ever, too.
Yeah, this is by far his best film. But you know what I think, and maybe I'm wrong. I think this movie, he really swung for the fences, and it was such like a stressful experience, and it was such a bomb that he almost didn't go back to that. He went back to like his he has a formula now, and he's been very successful at Resident Evil. But now when you see one of his movies, you're like, this is the guy who made Event Horizon. I wonder if this film kind of changed him a little bit in regards to how he's shot.
Yeah, it's funny. You don't normally think of someone achieving. I'm just going to say greatness. I mean, people can say what they want about calling this film art or not, but I don't think normally people would achieve greatness and then decide not to go for it again. Not for fear of not meeting the mark, but by the pragmatic reality of how stressful it was, how much work it was. Yeah, I mean, you can still make really fun films without stressing yourself out.
And Paramount didn't know they were going to get this kind of cut from him. And he said it on the commentary that he was in a really dark place. So the first screening that he turned into people, they explained it as the audiences went from horror to indignation.
Oh, yeah, I think, didn't he say like it got so over the top that they basically just disengaged and didn't even, they went from being horrified to just being disgusted by the film and not being horrified anymore.
Yeah, and like and then also did you hear the story about how a flamethrower burnt down one of their stages?
Yes.
Their fire effect.
It was so powerful.
Yeah.
They had this. The only thing they had was too powerful for what they needed.
Yeah, so this is one of those productions, and I don't know, but because of that, like I think you said this movie reaches greatness. I think it's very. I mean, for the time that it had, the cast that it had, the reshoots that they had to go through, the fact that it's as good as it is a miracle to me. And so, I don't know, I just have a lot more respect for this movie after knowing everything that went behind the scenes. The cinematographer is really good too. Adrian Biddle, he did Princess Bride, Willow, Reign of Fire, The Mummy, The World's Not Enough. So, I mean, there's a lot of talent behind the camera. They even apparently talked to Clive Barker when they were writing the script, or like working on the script and doing storyboards.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty neat. That was IMDb. I didn't hear that out of his mouth. But so I guess I talked about the background of the film a lot. Do you want to like jump into the actual film?
Yeah, I'd love to actually start really early on in the film, right after we first see Sam Neill, and he's on this little temporary space station going around the Earth's orbit before he gets on the Lewis and Clark. When we first meet him, there's so many shots in this film that I think are fantastic. Remember, we see him, he's upside down, he's having his coffee, and the film and the camera starts to pan backwards while spinning as we get a wider and wider and wider shot of the space station.
Yeah.
I mean, that was amazing to me.
That shot made a guy quit the industry because he worked so hard on it.
The whole industry?
Yeah, he quit because it was so rushed, and the thing is, this is a one more thing. This is a $60 million movie back in 97. I guess they were shooting in 96, let's say. The reason that it was so expensive is because the rush to create everything created a lot of overtime. And so if they would have had a normal schedule, it would have probably cost the same amount, and they could have had a lot more. But since it was such a truncated amount of time, once these workers go from 8 hours to 10 hours to 12 hours to 14 hours, and then they come back and they're doing 7 days a week, when you hit that much money, like that's why this movie's so expensive. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I wanted to tell you that. And that one shot is beautiful. And for 1996, 1997 standards, it looks beautiful.
Oh God. I thought it was
And he
so
actually
cool.
framed it after, Notre Dame. He actually put it into a computer system and molded that. That was his design, Anderson. Like he wanted that look for the ship.
Yeah. So, and we meet Sam Weir. He has kind of a weird little dream that we don't need to get into yet unless you really want to, but he has like a weird little, not a dream, more like he's just, something's bothering him. And then what? He ends up getting onto Lewis and Clark. He gets rushed into his not cryo sleeper, but this aquatic hypersleep by the Lewis and Clark crew that are going to be our protagonists. And then they just like launch out 56 days, to the orbit of Neptune, to where the Event Horizon has reappeared this faster than light ship after it had disappeared for 7 years and no one knows why or where it went or any of that.
Well, it's because of the dimensional gateway. Point A and point B coexist at the same time. It's a gravity drive. Interstellar did that as well. Sorry. That's all you just.
And anyone who saw that new Disney trailer for A Wrinkle in Time, where the kids are explaining that the shortest distance between 2 points is absolute zero, and this has been used in other movies too. This is the first movie where this example ever came up. And they actually talked to like a physicist or a mathematician, and then the producers or the writers were charged to try and explain this on screen, and this just totally worked.
Yeah, they're like, well, it's Paul Anderson's like, people aren't going to want to listen to that. That's why, like, they picked up the picture of, like, the scantily clad woman to, like, break, like, fold it in half and put the pencil through it. So they wanted to, like, put some pizzazz to it, because for some reason Paul Anderson was like, people don't want to listen to this. So they kind of spiced it up to make that kind of set.
What a great scene, too. I heard the commentary. I didn't see all the making of, but I heard the commentary, and it turns out they were nervous about that scene during the filmmaking because it was the longest continuous scene of just dialogue in the whole movie. But it had so much character. We have, oh gosh, I can't think of his name. Pertwee?
Sam Pertwee. Sean Pertwee is Smith. Then you have
Sean Pertwee.
Yep. Then you have Lawrence Fishburne as Captain Miller. Joel Lee Richardson as Stark. Kathleen Quinlan.
Tuck, right?
That's a big name. Kathleen Quinlan's Peters.
Yeah.
Richard T. Jones as Cooper. Jack Noseworthy's Justin. Jason Isaacs. Harry Potter. That kind of fame.
And
he's DJ. Big cast.
These characters, though, in this scene, almost, I won't say all because I can't remember the scene perfectly, but almost all of them had a moment to kind of enrich it with their reactions. They're very different kinds of reactions: stress, sarcasm, skepticism, pragmatism from Captain Miller. But Sean Pertwee just kind of freaks out about it. He reacts to the, oh, well, that's, so-and-so, that's mine, the centerfold fold out that was used. Yeah. And he freaks out and gets up from the table. Like, everyone had their moment to first show you how they are. And after seeing that scene, I can't imagine why you were nervous, but of course I wasn't behind the camera.
Yeah. And the crew on the Lewis and Clark, they didn't want to be there. They got pulled from something else to go do a mission they don't know anything about. So there's a lot of hesitation with Sam Neill. And you know what I like the most about Sam Neill's character in this scene? He's very pompous. He's very what's the word? You can see that he thinks he's like the smartest guy. I don't know, that scene really sets up his character well as like the smartest guy in the room. And I thought it did a good job with him.
And he wants to be liked, but he's not so self-aware about how he comes off.
Yeah, there we go.
He's clearly, very pleased with himself because, and why are you here, Dr. Weir? Because I created him.
Yeah, that's what it was.
His hands come up in the air. Yeah. It's almost like when someone says, "Welcome to Jurassic Park." Their eyes light up, their smile gets a little wider, their hands are in the air when they say it. Yeah. Like, I'm doing it right now, like our listeners can hear my hands in the air. But he really wants to be liked, he wants to be understood. We know that he cares a lot about this ship. And we also get a glimmer, again, earlier, it's very vague. And then in his stasis sleep, when they were on the way to this scene, he has a nightmare about his wife. And it basically comes down to how he should have been there. He has all this guilt. Something horrible happened to her. We don't see what it is yet. Or not something horrible, but, something happened. He's guilty. He's not with her anymore.
Yeah.
So this ship, though, is what created a problem in his love life and his personal life because he was obsessed with it. And now he's here and he's happy to be here. He's excited to go find her, as he always calls the event horizon. It's always a her. It's like some dude, squeegeeing a rag over his 57 Corvette on weekends in his garage.
Yep, I got a cleaner.
Did Corvettes exist in 57? I just made up car things. I'm not a car person.
I'm sure they did. No, and then they receive a single transmission, right? And it's obviously terrible. But this is a rescue mission. These guys aren't called in to go do this. So normally if you're just like an asteroid cheese farmer, you're like, I'm out of here. These people are speaking Latin. And they're obviously killing each other. But these people are like, we gotta go. Like, that's our job.
Well, and they were already there
Yeah.
when they first heard it. That's, again, it's so in the dark. Again, I'm going to come back to Alien. It's like when something was discovered and they learned that they were contractually obligated to go, even though it was time to head home. In this case, they just had to go. They had to leave their vacation. And then they're hearing, it's like this, and you don't know if it's because the transmission is bad, if it's because there's a fire or a breach in the hull, or because the ship is exploding, or because, carnivorous tribbles are eating them alive. You don't know what it is.
Yeah, or Bury Your Dead is performing a song, like some hardcore stuff.
I can't even, it's funny. I've seen this so many times. I can't even imagine what it's like to respond to this radio transmission if you haven't seen the movie.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? What's your reaction to that? Hey, listeners, if you just saw this movie for the first time before this podcast, please tell me what your initial response was to that horrible radio transmission. Did it just sound like white noise?
All right, so then they get to the ship. Sam Neill, or Weir, knows exactly where to go. And you know what I thought was pretty interesting? What was his name? Mr. Cooper. No, not Cooper. Justin. They called him Baby Bear.
Well, so yeah.
No, I like that, though. It shows that, like, they're a crew.
It wasn't, and it wasn't just Kathleen Quinlan's character. Someone else said it first.
Yeah, Fishburne said it. Cooper says it. Yeah, like that's his nickname. Like I like that. That was like lived.
I feel like that was one of the unexplored things in the movie, but maybe when they were writing the characters, they had this notion because all the characters had a guilt where the ship would later haunt them. And we know what most of the people's are, but we never knew what was haunting Mr. Justin when he had his hellish psychotic episode. And it strikes me that his is probably about abandonment and loss because he has his mama bear, Kathleen Quinlan. And he tries to, when he goes into his evil zone, he tries to end his own life. He's saying how lonely it is. He was saying not how horrible. He was talking about how lonely it was in the dark.
I mean, I thought you really looked into this.
Well, I don't know. I just kind of felt it. I guess it doesn't help my viewing that my mother isn't doing well and I lost my dad a year ago. Yeah. But it didn't take me to a bad place. It just had me kind of honing in on that. And when we were thinking about the movie, again, everyone had their own guilt and only some people's were discussed. And in the commentary, they mentioned Jason Isaacs' fear and guilt had to do with his surgery, with the scar on his chest, which is why Sam Neill did what he did to him later in the movie when he went evil. But they didn't discuss that in the script, in the dialogue. And Mr. Justin's was kind of left in the dark for us too. But so I think that's what that Baby Bear thing was. I imagine one of the cuts might have had a line of dialogue or a rewrite that maybe separated us as first-time viewers from the real meaning to that.
I just saw him as a rookie, and they just kind of called him Baby Bear. Like he was like one of the youngest on the crew, and it's a way to show that they're lived in.
But he's got a mama bear, but not a papa bear.
But he never calls her Mama Bear, and everyone else calls him that. So I think it's just like a term of endearment to show that they're a crew.
Oh, it could be that too.
You know how when we worked with Dave, we just called him Shithead.
Aw, and Ragwood.
Yeah, that's right. Guy we worked with at Comic-Cons for years. So they're on the ship. Mr. Justin goes in. He gets sucked into some goo. He gets blown back. A bunch of damages happen. And, I mean, is there anything else you want to cover in there?
Well, so, when we first announced that we were going to do this for a podcast episode, one of my friends who didn't like the movie apparently that much actually threw a question out, not really as a listener question. He said, here's my problem with this movie. What possessed Sam Neill, and at what point does he become possessed? And this question has like 89 answers. I thought about it a lot. But the movie first shows us, in my opinion, when they go to the core, the magnetic drive, what they call the gravity drive, right? The thing that does the special travel. And when they are leaving the room, after he's there, it's totally safe, this, that, and the other. I'm Sam Neill. I'm trying to do a Sam Neill voice. when they are leaving, there's a and it closes in on his eye.